Okay, we call this session of the Board of Zoning Appeals to order. First item, I guess, is a roll call. Miss Freddie is not here. Cicely is not here. Miss Kendra. Mark. Ron Moreland is not, and Eric Langford. Also present, we have the building official Rosalie and Amanda Harrington, our planning consultant, and our new, gonna have to help me out,
New
office manager Joanne Hampton. Okay. Just a reminder, if you plan to speak, I guess we only got the one party. If you plan to speak, you need to be signed up. And we are being recorded, so please use your microphone. Okay, next item on the business on the agenda then is approval of the minutes. You should have a copy of last month's minutes in your handout. I'll give you just a second to review them. There are no changes or additions, corrections. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Ms. Kendra, second. Second by Mark Presley. We have a motion and a second to approve minutes as presented. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thanks to the secretary. Next item on the agenda then is any changes to the agenda. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I approve the motion.
Okay. Motion to approve by Eric, second by Ms. Kendra. All those in favor say aye. Okay, agenda is approved. I don't think we have anybody here for a public hearing, and I don't think we have any old business, so we'll just skip right into new business. And so the Farleys, if you would have anything you'd like to tell us about it. Now, looks to me like there are three variants. Yes, three variances there, so we'll have to take them one at a time.
I'm sorry, Mr. Farley, but you really do need to use the microphone in order for it to record properly, or it will not record.
So it's on now? Okay, great. Sorry. All better? Familiar where the property is located? I think I heard y'all talking about it. It's 4.25 acres. I purchased from Seth and Zach Blankenship. It wraps around be the west side of Blankenship Collision Center and around the back side of his building there. But the first variance I requested there's a lot of natural vegetation, fence rows and on the east, west, and what would be the south border property lines. Requesting a variance for the landscape buffer in those areas where that natural vegetation does exist. And when I say natural vegetation, it's 30, 40-foot trees. Typically it's 20 plus feet of vegetation.
So that's going to be primarily on the backside and
well, the Welch property is heavily wooded on the backside, which would be the south side of the property. On the west side of the property, there's a heavily grown fence row from Highway 25 back approximately, it's around 400 feet. It's a heavily overgrown fence row. I've cleaned up to it. And then on the west side or the east side of the property between the current ongoing development and my property, there's heavy vegetation there as well.
So you started with some clearing, some of that you took out.
I cleaned up leaving the buffer. I did clean some of that out on my, where I plan on actually building the buildings.
Is there an actual fence there?
Yes, woven wire fence there currently, yes. In those areas. Now, where there's not a fence. That's where I plan on putting a chain link fence and some sort of, and when the project's completed, come back and put some hedgerows in just to create that buffer. And along the front side on the roadway as well. I do plan on putting an 8-foot chain link fence around the entire entirety of the property when complete.
So once the mini storages are complete, a 8-foot chain link fence is going around the entire property.
Correct. Except on the roadway, I'll probably put more of a decorative fence along the roadway just for aesthetics. But around the east side, east, west, and south side of the property would be an 8-foot chain link fence. Yes, sir.
But as of right now, while the construction phase is the buffer zone that you're wanting with the chain link fence that's there now, until you're in operation, and then before you're in operation, an 8-foot fence is gonna be installed, correct?
Correct.
I assume inside.
It'll be
You're gonna-
just
you're gonna go
inside the
just
property line,
inside the,
just inside the boundary, yes.
So if some of the buffer strip is a little thin on the vegetation, you did say that you would be going back at the end of the project and making sure that it is at least 10 feet of vegetation.
That is correct, yes.
Thank you, sir.
well, will there be something between your property and Blankenship's? Or is that?
Myself and Seth will be installing a fence on our property. That's a joint venture. We'll be splitting the cost of that.
In looking at the request for the variance for the buffer strip, this is typically what we've done in high vegetation areas. For instance, over off of New Halltown Road for the new townhomes, they had high vegetation and we did allow them to use the existing trees and shrubbery there as part of their landscaping. Also, the wedding venue that's off of Templo Road that was approved, we allowed them to use a lot of their vegetation because they did have a lot of robust trees that did provide that 10-foot barrier.
Any more questions on that one? What's that?
I've written my recommendations on for both the dustless surface and the landscape together. So I'd like to reserve my comments until the applicant has addressed both. Thank you.
I have a question about the parking spaces. It says parking lot dustless surface relief. Okay. One at a time.
So should I go ahead and give my? Okay, so in the evaluation of the landscaping variance request, pulling from your ordinance, that variances shall be granted in with the there are six excuse me, criteria that are listed specifically in your ordinance, that variances shall be granted only where special circumstances or conditions fully described in the findings of the board do not generally appear in the district. The finding, there do not appear to be special circumstances or conditions that apply to this parcel that would justify relief from the mandatory landscaping requirements. Variances shall not be granted to allow use otherwise excluding from the particular district in which the variance is requested. The finding is that the applicant's intended use is permitted by right, so that's not an issue. Number 3, for reasons fully set forth in the findings of the board, the aforesaid circumstances or conditions are such that the strict application of the provisions of this resolution would deprive the applicant of any reasonable use of his land. Mere loss in value shall not justify a variance. There must be a deprivation of the beneficial use of land. Staff's finding is the installation of a landscaping buffer does not prevent the applicant from reasonably using the subject property. Number 4, the granting of any variance shall be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of this resolution and shall not be injurious to the neighborhood, detrimental to the public welfare, or in conflict with the comprehensive plan for development. Staff's finding is the granting of the variance would not be in harmony with the immediate development in the area, which appears to have robust landscape screening. Number 5, in reviewing an application for a variance, the burden of showing that the variance should be granted shall be upon the person applying therefore. At the time the report was written, that was undetermined, but given the applicant's verbal presentation, I believe that a burden has been met in his statement that there is robust landscaping present and that he would be willing to ensure that the depth of the existing landscaping would be suitable to the board. Should the board decide to grant the variance. Number 6, variances shall not be granted within any flood-prone area if an increase in the level of the 100-year flood would result from any proposed development. And the finding is the site is not in an area of special flood hazard. So of the 6, 2 were not applicable, and 1, let's see, two were not applicable. 2 did not meet the criteria for staff's findings, and 1 had a verbal explanation provided to the board.
All right. What's that? Go ahead.
With the various weather situations that we've been having in this county, I know you've heard me speak often about stormwater runoff. And with the establishment of the trees that you have on this property, honestly, it would help prevent the runoff that is experiencing over there in the residential section that's right next to this one. With what I've been seeing with different landscape buffers, the new ones being installed, they're not making it, shall we say. The trees tend to die and the bushes tend to die, thus creating more of a runoff situation. This does have a little bit of elevation. Am I correct, Mr. Farley?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
So with using the existing vegetation in this area, in my opinion, I do believe that it would help prevent stormwater runoff, adding to what is already going on in the subdivision next door.
All right, if there's not any further comments, then I'll entertain a motion to either approve or deny the variance on the buffer required landscaping and buffer strip.
I make a motion to approve the adjustment to the buffer strip.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Mark,
I'll second the motion.
second by Eric. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. So that variance is granted. All right, the next one.
Yeah,
Parking lot.
sorry.
Well, let's start with the number of parking spaces. Let's go to that one.
The way I had the site developed, it's consistent with storage unit, self-storage facilities that I see, across the county and surrounding counties. And, it's the parking spot would be, basically perpendicular to every unit. And so, I mean, having a parking stall labeled, I didn't see a necessity there. But as my site plan shows, it shows plenty of parking available for anybody using the storage facility in front of their respected units. So I was unsure about the number of parking stalls.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Go ahead.
And just to be clear, this is not a variance request. This portion is not. This is just something that in your resolution, it states that the BZA is to set the number of parking. So this is not a variance. This is just the
Okay.
BZA setting the number of parking spaces for this type of use.
Yeah, I read that.
So basically I would have, 1 to 2 parking spots per unit. It just wouldn't be painted out on the ground, but in front of every unit would be enough for a parking stall.
Will you have an employee?
Uh,
You?
yeah.
Okay,
yes.
so there is one, I mean, you gotta have one designated for.
Well, no, the facility will be managed by itself remotely. So there'll be a keypad to get in,
Oh, I see.
keypad to get out. It will be, it will be managed.
So there won't be an on-site employee then?
No, sir.
I don't see on the map or the picture that I have, like say in the building A, if a vehicle was to pull up and like say back up to one of those units, what is the distance between the front of that unit to the driving pad that's going to be allowed?
There's 25 feet between each unit, each set of row of units. And it's on the larger plat, I think, but maybe not the smaller one you have. I think the codes is actually 20 feet, so it's actually 5 more feet than it needed to be. I didn't want anybody running over my buildings. That's pretty tight with a trailer.
Now, when you had the engineers work on this design for you, did you do like a basic traffic pattern where like large U-Hauls coming in, that are trying to store, are they going to be able to maneuver?
Yes, and I'm, just to stay consistent, I did 25 foot on the center. On the outside edges where you actually have a turning radius to go around the building, it's anywhere from 30 to 35 feet. So it's ample room to turn a full size U-Haul truck, not your small one, but actually a 30 to 40-foot box truck can easily make that turn without hitting my building, which was the goal.
So what are we really voting on? Just voting on the number of parking spaces, that's it?
The number of parking
So
spaces.
basically, the motion we're looking for then is that the site plan has an acceptable number of parking spaces.
Right. So you'll be assigning a number of parking spaces, which is why I had pulled out from the International Code Council recommended 1 per 500 square feet of warehousing, which was an insane number in my own personal opinion. Which is why in the staff report, there's the breakout of parking spots. 1 per 2,000 square feet would result in 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 27 total spots over almost 5 acres.
And I think I'll have around 300 parking stalls if you count one parking stall in front of each building to access their building when it's all said and done. So
Right.
it should be ample. So thank you.
So you have a grand total of,
The site plan is showing a total of 351 total units through all phases.
units.
I'm
But-
sorry.
Of storage units.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, but you don't have any specific parking spaces marked out just yet.
No, ma'am, I do
Right.
not.
So that's what I'm suggesting to, if you all wanted to, that's what that chart is down in your staff report. If you wanted to go with the councils, with the the ICC recommendation at 1 per 500 square feet, that would be an upwards of 100 some parking spaces for that area. But I put in there 1 per 500, 1 per 1,000 square feet, 1 per 1,500, or 1 per 2,000 square feet. Knowing that there are going to be some instances where people have to, pull in and park for a couple of minutes or a couple of hours, assuming that not everybody arrives at the same time, but not everybody leaves at the same time either. So because this is a use that is in your resolution, it just doesn't have a specific parking calculation called out for it. It's left to this body to determine how many parking spots you think this particular use needs. Or you could simply say 1 per storage unit.
I noticed they're gonna be built in phases. Are we going ahead and doing the total parking for all 4 phases?
Any further questions? Everybody's confused as I am. I think, the motion that I'd like to ask for is a motion to approve the parking spaces as platted on the plat. Because there's a lot of space there.
There aren't any platted on the.
If I may speak, as planned would be consistent with every other storage facility in the county and the parking, you would designate whoever's leasing that unit has a parking space in front of that unit. And there's room for, 25 foot allows someone to park directly beside them for their unit directly adjacent to it. So that was my request.
So 1 per unit. 1 per unit be the
Yep. That's his request, but that's. We all know you can't park 351 vehicles in there at the same time. It's not gonna happen. So I don't think that 351 parking spaces is in the cards, but that's too many. But I don't know if we want to just pull,
But one for each unit.
351 units.
I don't expect 351 people to be there at one time. I mean,
No,
I would like, but
No,
that's,
they're not gonna.
everybody would have a parking spot, as they come and go.
So what was your recommendation, 351 or?
I think one per unit would not be unreasonable. Yeah, I'm thinking about the times that I've moved in my life where I have somebody driving a U-Haul and I'm following behind in a pickup truck or something, where I might need two spaces. But, generally speaking, I think at a minimum, one per unit would be appropriate at the very minimum.
And just to be clear, how many are you, were you wanting to put parking space?
Well, I hadn't planned on painting out any parking spaces. It was just working off the assumption, like I said, consistent with the other buildings in the county. There's no parking stalls identified, either one of them. It's just assumed that the parking stall is directly in front of the unit, he or she is leasing.
I got you.
So 350 units, and you don't expect all 350 of them to be there at the same time.
Correct.
So what if you cut that number in half? Or even, designated parking spots, they're not gonna be marked, but they're gonna be, it's just known that in front of each unit is a parking spot.
You could. Even going with the code council's recommendation, that would only leave 110. That would be 110 parking spots at the code, using the International Code Council's recommendation. That would be 110 spots total. That's at one per 500 square feet. But if your applicant is willing to provide more parking, then you're establishing a minimum is essentially for him. Because at the end of the day, you're already going to have that space reserved in the front. So really, there's no skin off the proverbial nose for reserving that as parking. Because that's already dedicated to the entrance into the storage unit. And then if somebody,
I assume the lots of gravel,
I'm sorry.
the lots of gravel.
It will be crushed stone. Yeah, that's where we get to the next request.
that's your next variant.
Right, but my point is he's not gonna paint parking spots on any of it. So there won't be any painted parking spots.
For what it is worth, during the first, during the initial phase, how these units fill up will depend on how each phase progresses. I do plan on parking or allowing RV and boat parking, in which I will have probably 30 to anywhere from 30 to 50 parking stalls for that until I start another phase. And then I do plan on covering that up with units, but I will then revert back to the assumption that each parking stall for the unit would be adjacent to it, so.
Okay, someone want to make a motion that we assume that there's one parking spot in front of each of the units?
I'll make the motion that for each unit has its own parking spot.
I will second.
Okay, we have a motion by Eric, a second by Kendra, that we're assuming that each unit has its own parking spot directly in front of it. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Okay, that leaves us to parking lot dustless surface relief.
Yes, it is the request for I plan on using, like I said, crushed stone, for a variety of reasons. And not just crushed stone I plan on using what's referred to as asphalt millings. I'm sure most of you know that, not just the stone, it's also absorbed with oil. So it does have less dust. It's more compactful. Over time, it will start to mimic pavement, but you won't have, it'll also allow groundwater to absorb, and you won't have 4.5 acres of stormwater runoff as these units. And so that's why I'm requesting that. And once again, that is also consistent with other storage facilities in the county. I don't know of one that has anything but a crushed stone aggregate surface.
Mr. Chair, if I may. Thank you. The regulation reads Section 4, Article 4, Section 4.013E. All parking lots for commercial or industrial uses shall be suitably paved with an all-weather wearing surface or a dustless material. So it's up to this BZA to determine if the material that the applicant has described is an all-weather wearing surface or dustless material.
In listening to the material that Mr. Farley is going to be using for the paving of this, I believe that will lend itself to mitigating any type of stormwater issue that they do have in that area. I've seen, again, and I'm sure you guys have seen videos of various streets that are paved that are having extreme stormwater concerns. With him using the gravel, as he's saying, and the millings, that will allow for absorbability, and it will not have as much stormwater runoff as it will, and it does help contain the dust.
Any questions? The asphalt millings are not dusty. The limestone, though.
Correct.
That's pretty
It is.
dusty. Anybody want to make a motion to approve the dustless surface relief as long as he uses the asphalt millings?
I make a motion to approve the dustless surface relief for the parking lot
As long as he uses the asphalt millings.
as long as you use the asphalt dusting.
Okay. Second, have a motion by Mark,
I'll
second by
second.
Kendra. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, motion carries. So that's the three variances that I have listed on the agenda. Any other discussion? Chairman has no report, so what have you got for us? This building official? Your
So,
Job's getting easier, right?
I am so grateful to have Joanne Hampton as the new office manager in the Building Codes and Zoning Office. She is already utilizing the permitting software, which not only encompasses building permits, but business licenses, those that are coming forward to Planning Commission, the planning application is in the permitting software in the BZA. And she's been a tremendous help already. Thank you so very much. Glad you're aboard.
So does that mean you're gonna be set up to tell us which of our major home occupations are due for their 3-year reviews?
Yes.
Okay, that's the only remark from the chair. Anybody else have anything? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I just got one question. I noticed we normally have sign variances, so is the sign gonna be at a size that we don't have to determine?
He didn't ask about a sign.
Okay.
If he decides to put a sign up, he's gonna have to come back for another variance because our sign ordinance is very restrictive.
Okay.
That's good because our signage is,
Our sign ordinances are very antiquated and are very small.
anything else? Motion to adjourn. Somebody's gotta do it.
I'm
Eric?
to adjourn.
Got a motion from Eric, second. Second from Miss Kendra. All those in favor say aye. We're adjourned.